Polypede works here. What if I told you that Miss Golden Week has a devil fruit? Well, not in the traditional sense, but in a way in which she's using devil fruit powers without the user. Let me explain. So, recently, I made a video about how I think there are more special paramecia in the series other than Katakuri. Actually, which makes this very on point, is that I believe the first special paramecia that we see in the series is Miss Golden Week's partner, Mr. 3. So, in the video, I said that a special paramecia can be cited by the abilities that they use. So, that means they generate a substance limitlessly and effortlessly. Said substance has some sort of special ability, and then that user has a relationship with that ability. That's what I think is going on with Miss Golden Week. However, it goes a little deeper. Miss Golden Week herself does not have a devil fruit like her partner, Mr. 3, whom I believe, much like Katakuri, is a special paramecia. No, she is using a special paramecia's powers while they are elsewhere. Let me explain this a little further though. So, do you remember Thriller Bark? Or even going back to Little Garden, it's more or less the same thing. What I mean by that is, in certain situations, when a paramecia either produces something or is affecting something else, the leftovers produced can be used by other people. And we have seen this several times throughout the series. Some of them, like with Nami and Zeus, have been permanent, as if you didn't know, Zeus is a byproduct of Big Mom using her own soul and putting that in a cloud. So Zeus himself is a devil fruit curated automaton. He's a devil fruit byproduct. I think, going back to Miss Golden Week, that the paint she uses is a special devil fruit byproduct. Now, going off the rules I said a little earlier in this conversation, in which I said the powers of a special paramecia are that they produce a substance limitlessly and effortlessly. That substance has a special ability and the user has a special relationship with that ability. We know one thing is for sure. The paint itself, the paint that Miss Golden Week uses, is special because of what we've seen it do in the manga and in the anime, but mostly the manga. The manga gets strange, and I'm going to go over that now. So, first of all, we see that the paint has some kind of hypnotic effect, as when Miss Golden Week paints symbols on a person, they act accordingly whatever the color of that symbol is, which already lets you know that the paint itself is special. Not only that, but way later in the Baroque Works cover story, when she breaks a bunch of members out of jail, there's a final technique that she uses in which she summons this rainbow. Said rainbow is able to materialize clothing onto the people it touches. This even affects Mr. 1 and Crocodile, who have been imprisoned. However, Mr. 2 and Mr. 3 aren't touched by this rainbow. The rainbow is said to reveal the true dreams of the people it touches. And the weird part about all of this is that the paint that makes the rainbow is able to produce clothing. And we know this isn't a trick, this isn't a joke, because the Baroque Works members, after this is all said and done, and are working in the newly constructed Spider Cafe, are still wearing the clothes made from the paint. They're still wearing them. And then furthermore, in prison, while Mr. 2 and Mr. 3 are thrown in prison, Crocodile and Mr. 1 are still wearing their get-ups that they were bestowed with by the paint. That lets me know that the paint has a property much like, say, Kinemon's fruit, in which it can just materialize actual objects from itself. This is very much too like the brush fruit, in which its ink can materialize seemingly actual things from the ink, even though it's later revealed that things produced by the brush fruit are actually just constructs made out of ink. But still, they are convincing, and some of them do hold special properties. And if you watch that video, the brush fruit is on the list for the special paramecia. So what do I think is going on? I think that Miss Goldenweek, before she became a Baroque Works agent, had a teacher. Said teacher taught Marianne, also known as Miss Goldenweek, how to use paints effectively, essentially teaching her how to be an artist. So when Marianne graduated from the teacher's class, she was gifted with a palette. Said palette was imbued with the teacher's ability, and I think that teacher was the holder of the special paramecia known as the paint fruit. I think what abilities that the teacher has that they imbued inside of the palette was that Marianne will never run out of paint. So the paint palette has everlasting paint. Said paint palette also has paint that has the same abilities that the teacher has, but on a smaller scale. Kind of like how a shadow ripped from a person by the shadow fruit has all of their abilities, at least their physical abilities and memories. It's kind of like that, but on a more personal level, because it's given to an object to be given to a person willingly. So in this case, she'll never run out of any kind of color. And then she was taught, of course, said colors do certain things, but then she can also mix those colors together to produce different effects. And finally, she can produce the rainbow that we see in the cover story. So far, there are several art fruits in the series, and I guess clothing themed fruits if you want to consider fashion a part of art in this case, because we have the garb fruit held by Kinemon, we have the brush fruit held by Conjuro, and then we have the actual art fruit held by Jola. But in Jola's case, it's art as in a finished piece, and then it's always kind of abstract art, but I don't know if that's particular to the person who wields it. Because if, say, someone was more nature themed, they could have impressionist abilities with their artwork when it's like heavy, like saturations of light and such. Don't know. But the point is that I think Marianne, Miss Goldenweek, is carrying around a palette that has a devilfruit property attached to it. Because for her paint to be normal paint seems highly impractical, seeing as how from this point forward, anything else that has been kind of devilfruit adjacent has either been a martial art physiology or just a weird way of fighting. There's always like a practical explanation for what's going on. But especially with the cover story, that was just weird. Clothes appearing out of nowhere, no explanation given, it just happened. So when those type of occurrences happen, you can only say that they are a part of a devilfruit ability. In this case, the paint fruit, potentially. Now, how does this differ from, say, I don't know, like the wax fruit, which is kind of an art fruit if you think about it, the brush fruit, etc.? Well, I don't think the paint fruit, unlike the brush fruit, can create living things. I think what the paint fruit does is that, much like a piece of art, it brings out the potential in others. So the reason why I say that is because we only see the paint being used on people. It doesn't have any constructs of its own. So in that way, it's kind of weaker than, say, the brush fruit or the wax fruit, but it makes it quite similar to, say, the art fruit. Here we have a substance that can only affect people, not even objects, specifically people, whereas the art fruit could affect people and things. But yes, much like the art fruit, it can only affect, it can't, say, create constructs as far as we know, because the only construct I could say that the paint fruit has ever made is that rainbow in the sky that Marianne painted. And even then, the rainbow was set up to affect the people in the surrounding area or the people that Marianne had targeted. So with that being said, I think Marianne had a teacher. That teacher had the paint fruit, but Marianne, through some circumstance, is related to said teacher, perhaps a student, perhaps they are the parent of Marianne. She is their daughter. But after graduating their class or becoming an artist in her own right, she was gifted a palette, and said palette is like a miniature version of the paint user themselves. Obviously, there are going to be some limitations because, like, say, looking at someone like Big Mom or even like a shadow taken by the Shadow Fruit, you're not going to get the full effect of the person or the user just by getting a byproduct of them. So most likely the paint user in full is more powerful than Marianne's palette. But I think what we see from Marianne is just a sample of what the paint fruit user can actually do. And with that being said, that's my Golden Week video. This is the second time I'm doing this. So give me your thoughts.